So one day, I was seeing a patient who was a teenager from the Middle East. She was wearing a black burka. Her symptoms were such that I needed to listen to her heart. Now look, nobody's ever told me this before, but I am pretty sure that the number one rule of being a male doctor, seeing a young woman in a burka, is this: you stay as far away as possible and you don't touch. But thankfully, her father was there and gave me permission to do what I needed to do. So as I came close, I started lifting up the burka, and it was just black on top of black on top of black. But look, underneath it all, she was just a teenager, and she was wearing a T-shirt that said, "Kiss me, I'm Irish." The world is smaller than we think. Even here in Memphis, where I live and work as a physician, but I believe that we could actually take advantage of that small world and use it to try to fix our troubled healthcare system. You know, our healthcare system, it is not making us healthier. Now, to change this dynamic, we need to stop seeing our bodies as little machines. Instead, we need to consciously remember our humanity. We, in my work, have come to understand that, even in an underserved population, that we can do better. That we can find a way to improve our healthcare outcomes. I believe in that. So how would we do that? I have come to find that there are important truths that my work has taught me. The first truth is this: that the way others see the world might help us. So when I was a senior in medical school, I spent a summer in Zimbabwe. While there, I was immediately taken by the fact that virtually every patient I saw before they came to me had already been to the Nyanga, or the witch doctor. I found this incredibly odd because it was actually free to go to the Western doctor, but it cost real money to go to the Nyanga. Why would anybody do that? So in order to get the answer to my question, I had to petition the Nyanga Association. It wasn't easy. It took a while, but I finally got permission, and then I sat down with a very experienced Nyanga and asked my question. He immediately knew the answer, and this is what he said: "I am able to answer the one question the Western doctor can never answer, which is this: why did I get sick?" Why did I get sick? That is a very human question, and it requires a human answer. Other cultures have actually come to see health in a very colorful, robust, engaging way that is far beyond what science can answer. Which leads me to my second truth, is that we are too enamored with technology. 50% of people who come to primary care doctors like me, that they have no medical problem. They come because their life is falling apart. People come to the doctor today for reasons they used to come to the priest. I wish I had a nickel for every patient I have seen that literally within 30 seconds is in tears because they have such a powerful pain in their heart. But it's not something that any diagnostic test could reveal. I can MRI somebody's chest all day long, and I will never know what love looks like. There are no pills to fix a broken heart. There just aren't. So, the fact is, we are actually training our young doctors to believe that the only way we can improve people's health is with very expensive blood tests and computerized diagnostic imaging. it's led us to have what I believe is an unholy love affair with technology. But by that I mean we've come to think I can live my life any way I want to, and it doesn't matter. Because when I'm broken, the doctor could use that technology to fix me. I hate to tell you this, the technology is not that good, and the doctor is not that smart. God gave us this body for a reason, and we have an obligation to take care of it. So when I was a third-year medical student, I was on a team doing CPR on an elderly man. It was my job to do chest compressions. In the middle of the code, the senior resident stuck his head in the room and said, "Hey guys, when this is over, where are we going for pizza?" And I found myself thinking, do I want pepperoni? How did I get to be that way? That's not the type of doctor I set out to be. A few weeks later, we were on rounds, and another medical student with me, she was presenting her patient to the attending physician, and she was giving lots of information about the patient, very personal information. In the middle of her sentence, he stopped her and said, "Young lady, I am afraid you have gotten to be too close to your patient. You need to learn to keep your distance." Really? I knew immediately that he was wrong. Nobody needs to be taught how to keep your distance from another person. We do that naturally. What you need to be taught is how do you get to be close to another person. That actually takes practice. In America, we are currently spending 17% of our GDP on healthcare. On this slide, the black line on the top, that's us. We're spending more money than any other country in the world. And yet our health outcomes oftentimes no better than developing world nations. Recently, the Commonwealth Fund did a study of the 11 richest countries in the world and compared us based on issues of quality, access, efficiency, equity, and other indicators such as infant mortality. That's the United States on the bottom. We finished dead last. How did this happen? Well, I blame Plato and Descartes. Plato and Descartes convinced us that you could take a human being and separate us into a body and a spirit. We put the body on one side and said it's the purview of science and medicine. On the other side, we put the spirit and all those other things that really make life rich and full. Other cultures know that the only way to truly be healthy is if you see a whole human being. So, what if we could turn the clock back? What if we could rethink our relationship to technology? So if we know that why did I get sick is actually a spiritual problem, and we know that our technology is not actually making us healthier, well, what would it look like if we could rethink this? Well, I would like to offer a different treatment plan. I have a prescription for you personally and for our healthcare system that would be based on the virtues of gentleness, kindness, compassion, humility, patience, and love. Look, I realize that this is not the healthcare system in America. This is not how it works. But what if it did? You know, what if we were actually able to engage people in things that matter to you and I? I believe this is what you think matters in life. I mean, who really cares if you live 2 years longer, if it means 2 years longer in a nursing home? Life for life's sake, that makes no sense. Breathing in, breathing out, I'm not signing up for that. Are you? If we're not helping people achieve what I think we would all consider to be the goals for living, having more joy in your life, having more love in your life, and being connected to those things that are greater than we are, if those things aren't happening, then what's the point? So instead, I would like to offer 3 principles to help you fill this prescription. The first is this: the person with the power has the responsibility to be kind. Years ago, I was living down on the river before the Renaissance of downtown Memphis, and I couldn't sleep. I go for a walk. I was probably in a place I shouldn't have been, but it was a beautiful night. There was a full moon, and as I'm standing there, I felt somebody walking toward me. You know that feeling? He got right up next to me. My heart's pounding. I'm reaching for my wallet. I'm praying, please, dear God, don't let him kill me. He gets right up next to me, and I swear to you, I'm not exaggerating. He was at least 10 feet tall. And he looks down at me and he says, "Ain't you my doctor?" And I look up at him and I go, "Yes, Jesus, I am." His name was Nimrod. He says to me, "You know, Doc, you shouldn't be here." And then he walks me back to my apartment. That night, it was Nimrod who had the power, and he used it to be kind toward me. And I think he proves my point that the way we use power is an important way that we see our health, because it has to be about kindness for all of us. Second principle is this: everyone deserves to be first. My patient, Henry, taught me this lesson as a child. So Henry was 2 months old when I looked in his right eye, and I immediately realized he had a retinoblastoma, cancer of his right eye. The only way to treat it was to take it out, which is what we did. Henry did fine, but over the next few years, his grandparents who raised him would bring him to the clinic literally with every runny nose or sore throat. It got to the point where Henry believed that he owned the clinic. So whenever Henry walked in the front door, it didn't matter how crowded it was. The first words out of Henry's mouth when he walked in were, "I'm first." I'm first. Isn't that what we want? To create a healthcare system where a child like Henry believes he's first? Where you might believe you're first? Now, if I can only get Henry to stop trying to gross out little girls by taking out his eye. The last principle my mother taught me: don't skip the rapids. When I was a senior in high school, my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. The doctors told her that she would probably live another 10 years. I now know that was an overly optimistic prognosis. The next summer, my mother had gotten very sick, and I had gone off to college, but I came home and I planned to do what I did every summer, which was take a rafting trip with my friends. We made all the plans and we were ready to go. And then my mother says to me, "Can I go with you?" Every young man's dream. His mother on a rafting trip with him and his friends. I say, of course. And off we go, and we drive up to North Carolina. We get there, we get in the boat, and we're going down the rapids, and everything goes fine until we get to the very end, and there's one last mammoth rapid. We pull over to scout it, and we're looking at it, and my mother got scared. I told her it was okay. She didn't need to go. We go to get back into the boat, and then my mother says, "Why not?" And she got in. And together we all went down. At a critical point, when I should have leaned forward, I leaned backwards. And like that, I was in the water. But I wasn't there for very long, because almost immediately, the hand of God, my mother, reached down and pulled me back in the boat. And the trip was over. My mother didn't skip the last rapid. At a point when she was clearly dying, I think she may have been the most alive she ever was in her life. My mother didn't let her uncertainty about the future stop her from doing what she did best, which was love me. If the only way we can act is if we're certain, we will never do anything. But what if we actually used our uncertainty about the future as a way that we could work together and change the world? And I think it would be a way we could change our healthcare system. So, the next time you hear a news report about our healthcare dilemmas, forget the politics. Don't worry too much about the staggering economics. Instead, I challenge you. Think about real people. Think about Nimrod. Think about Henry. Think about your own mother. And I ask you, don't forget about the girl in the burka, because really, deep down inside all of us, we are all Irish.